But for now, let's talk about the game because, oh boy, there was a good bit to talk about there. So starting the game off on the very first snap of the very first play of the new season, we had two giant things happen. One of them was a really unfortunate injury. Looks like to the Eagles fullback. If I'm not a doctor, but if I were to guess, some sort of serious non-contact injury. He had to get carted off, and just as I thought, like, oh dang, what a rough start for the Eagles. Jalen Carter gets ejected for the game for spitting in Dak's face. Um, let's just say when I saw that, I was like, what are we doing? Turns out he did kind of get rage baited a little bit by Dak, but it doesn't matter. You can't spit at a guy. And yeah, he got rightfully tossed. And with the Chiefs coming up next game, we know what the NFL likes to do with suspensions when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs. And that is they're always going to lean their way. I remember last year, Derwin James had this kind of rough, unnecessary roughness penalty. Not sure if it even gotten tossed from the game he was playing in. But what do you know? They had the Chiefs on the schedule next week, so Derwin James was was suspended from that game. So if I was an Eagles fan, I wouldn't keep my hopes up about Jalen Carter playing next week. And right away, you could tell that they were going to miss him because they made the Cowboys look like they had a competent run game. But let's first start with the passing stats. Dak went 21 of 34, had 188 yards, and no touchdowns through the air, at least from what I remember. It was just two Javonte Williams rushing touchdowns. Jalen Hurts went 19 of 23, only 4 incompletions, kept that ball moving. 152 yards in the air, and more importantly, was 62 on the ground. So Dallas at the beginning of the game was able to completely move the ball. It was really shocking at first because we'd been hearing about Dallas's deficiencies for the last 6 months, right? Safe to say, they had a pretty rough offseason. Check out episode 1, Micah Parsons. But, heading into this game, there was so much to prove, right? It's, can Dak carry this team now? Can the Cowboys really survive, right? Because they don't really have they don't have Micah Parsons. And so that defense is going to give up a lot of points, and it did. So can Dallas respond? And the answer right away was yes, which was really surprising. Javonte Williams was looking good and looked like he had 3 years back with Denver, and he was running through the hole really well. CeeDee Lamb was clicking at first. We had a few George Pickens plays. We had a big George Pickens PI on a 3rd and 20. Or no, sorry. It was on 2nd and long at the beginning of the game. And it was like, okay, Dallas can move. And then they punched the ball right away. And then we get our first look at that Dallas defense, which I think, as everyone expected, looked pretty rough. They really had no answer for Jalen Hurts running the ball, and that's something that we would see continue on for the rest of the game. At the beginning, they couldn't stop Saquon prior to the weather delay, but the weather delay stuff, we'll get there later. And Jalen, I'm going to give him a lot of credit this game because he really found a way to make plays with his legs. It was Josh Allen-like. Okay, I'm going to huge preface before I say this. Jalen Hurts is not the quarterback that Josh Allen is. But for someone who is like a Niners fan, it's in my best interest to hate on Jalen Hurts. He really, really impressed me today. It was just because of his ability to always find a way to get the big runs. His runs were freaking brutal. He had 60 yards. It did not feel like he had 60. It felt like he had 100 because of every single run he had. It was just at the worst time for Dallas. Always on 3rd and short or 3rd and long when there was nothing there. Jalen Hurts finds a way to make it work. And it was a game that was really, really rough from his receivers. He had like 7 completions to Dallas Goedert, a couple to Saquon, only 1 to A.J. Brown, and 3 to Devontae Smith, who was on my fantasy team. But at least I had Jalen Hurts at quarterback, so that made up for it. And Jalen Hurts, man, I was kind of surprised. I knew that he would have to take on a bit more of the responsibility heading into this year because the defensive losses for the Eagles were pretty huge. But he really went out there and he played himself a really good game. I didn't love the stuff from him passing the ball, but if he can continue running performances like that, and those runs didn't seem like taxing on his body or anything, then they'll be in a good spot. So from there, it was basically just a shootout. Neither team really could stop either team, and it was really concerning from Philadelphia's standpoint. And that's something that did get better later in the game, but it's still a bit of a concern. So we play through all of that, and then a little past the second half, we get the weather delay. And the weather delay lasted just a stupid amount of time. It was like an hour and a half. And I get there were lightning concerns, but that was the only time I've ever seen a game stopped for a lightning storm when there was no rain on the field. Like, I fully thought, like, later in the fourth quarter, I was like, oh, it's going to start raining now. And it's like, nope, it'll rain in 3 days in Philadelphia. It's like, okay, what are we doing? But I get it. You got to stop it for the safety. And from there, it really showed, what each of these teams can do with an hour. Because both of these DCs, I imagine, were able to look at the tape, huddle up, talk to their players, and both came out with really, really solid game plans after. Especially Matt Eberflus with Dallas, which I don't know. I never thought I would say Matt Eberflus had, a competent strategy or game plan, but here he was. Shut down Philadelphia multiple times. That offense should have taken control and won the game. We'll get that later. But that defense did its job. It went to work. And Vic Fangio finally, did Vic Fangio things. He didn't just sit there in his four-man rush, laid back zone coverage. He actually came out and he started attacking. There was a few really, really nice blitzes called, a few stunts on both sides. And you could tell both the quarterbacks were like, oh, crap, we were playing on easy mode. And here we go. Now we have a difficult game again. So back on coaching, I think this is really where, the difference of the game came. Of course, CeeDee Lamb's drops were rough, to say the least. Definitely had what was probably a game-losing drop on that, but outside of that, like once both teams started realizing that they needed a blitz, uh, you could tell that the OCs, especially because the Eagles had their new OC and head coach Brian Schottenheimer for the Cowboys, first time coaching for him, and he was the OC last year, and then they were kind of struggling to adapt. And eventually we did see Philadelphia get over it with Jalen Hurts running the ball a bit more. But Schottenheimer he just didn't know what to do. He was lost in the sauce. A couple times I was just screaming at him to run the ball because it was working, and he just refused to run the ball. Biggest play of the game was probably a turnover that, Javonte Williams is running the ball really well. And Miles Sanders gets a big run, but you can tell on that run, holy crap, that should have been an easy touchdown. But he just is slow. He doesn't got it like that anymore. And what do you know? A few plays later, he fumbles the ball away. And, that was a killer. I fully think Philadelphia would have taken control and started dominating the game from there. But, with the weather delay, it almost ended up working out in Dallas's favor because they were able to come back, rebound, not lose too much momentum off of that. And, I just want to kind of fast forward here to the end of the game. So once Dallas fails on 4th and 3, before Dallas attempts that 4th and 3, there's 2 minutes and 20 seconds left on the clock. And for some reason, they don't snap the ball. And I get it. You want to try and get the other team to go offsides, get a free 5 yards, keep that thing going. But it is the most predictable thing ever to not snap the ball there. And the Eagles just played in the Super Bowl. So I think they know that, they're not going to jump there. But they don't. And what that does is not only does it take away from the clock stopping once, it gives Vic Fangio a couple minutes to drop a really nice blitz that fully gets home. And it's one of those things where you could really tell it's like there's just a huge mismatch here when it comes to the coaches. Nick Sorensen, new Cowboys special teams coordinator, had himself a really horrible game. And as a Niners fan, that's just not shocking at all. Couple kickoffs from Aubrey that went into the end zone for some reason, fully booted them when that's the one thing you can't do right now. And few touches for Kevontae Turpin on special teams. Offense did a good job of getting him the ball though. And when you have a player that explosive and that dynamic with the ball, just seeing the ball, often roll away or him staying away from the ball, it's like, come on, Nick. You have an unbelievable player with the ball in his hands and you are actively trying to take it away. Anyways, so once the Cowboys fail that fourth down, the Eagles get the ball back, and it's like, okay, they hadn't gone to A.J. Brown the whole game. 0 targets. What do you think happens? First play. Everyone and their mother knew it. They now saw on the broadcast. They're like, hey, they're going to go to A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown catches the 8-yard ball. They admittedly do a good job stuffing them on second down. And then on 3rd down and 3, for some reason, the Eagles come out empty. And I know it worked. But when you have Saquon Barkley in your backfield, why are you coming out empty? If they just kept Saquon in the backfield, they could have ran pretty much that exact same play. And, you'd have had the added threat of Saquon, forcing those linebackers to stay real close. Instead, they come out on empty. And you know what? Credit to them, it works because Jalen Hurts had himself, again, like I said before, an unbelievable game. He's able to find the gap in the defense, just run for it and pick up a few yards and a first down. So even though I hated the choice for Philadelphia to go empty there, it did work. So, as much as I want to hate on it, can't really say too much. A real sloppy game, though, overall from both sides. And we saw something out of Philadelphia. We saw them being really undisciplined. At the beginning of the game, it really felt like they were almost cocky, right? It's like, oh, we just came off Super Bowl. Like Nolan Smith hits this super long taunt on their guy and picks up 15 yards. It's like, where did that ego come from? We did not see that last year, right? Of course, we know their head coach is cocky as all hell, Big Dom. But other than that, their players seemed reserved. And in this game, they were just not. They were actively grabbing. They were going for, like, just on the defensive side, they were just grabbing the receivers. And it was really weird. A really undisciplined game from Philadelphia. And that's something that, that isn't just a week one thing. That can carry over. So I think that'd be my biggest concern for Philly outside of this game. And for Dallas, right? Sorry, I'm just going to go ahead and flip over my notes. For Dallas, this game was a moral victory. I don't know if you can call a division loss to a division rival, not or your biggest rival, a moral victory, but it kind of was, right? Because I think most people had, Dallas pegged for 6-7 wins at most after the Micah Parsons trade. And they come out and they give the defending champs a real fight. Probably they're sitting there saying, man, if CD catches those balls, we're winning that game. And for a team that was supposed to be a bottom feeder this year that has been the mockery of the offseason, it was impressive. Is that something that I think can continue, though, is a little bit different. I think they got lucky, or I shouldn't say lucky. I think they were fortunate that they got to play Philadelphia week one. They got Jalen Carter being booted out of the game right away, which definitely messed with Philadelphia's plans. And they still couldn't capitalize, which, as much as it was a moral victory to stay within those 4 points, it's a game they should have had. It's a game that they lost. And they got a great game from Dak. They got a really good final drive, even though he had that dropped interception. Looked like it was more of a CD slip than anything. And for them to come away with that game with the loss is just, it's painful for Dallas, because if you win that game, everything's almost seemed right. It was like, yes, we did lose Micah Parsons, but hey, we stuffed Saquon for pretty much the entire second half. We were able to stop A.J. Brown. Our offense was able to move. And our offensive line actually looked really good against what is still a pretty solid Eagles pass rush. But with the loss, it feels like, well, it's same old Dallas. What else is new? Dallas failing on the last drive of the game. Dallas messing up, not being able to realize that on 3rd and 3, they're probably just going to run with Jalen Hurts. So if you're a Dallas fan, I don't know what you even take away from this game. It just felt like I'm just like, yeah, same old Cowboys, which I guess is an improvement from what we thought they would be. And for Philly, I mentioned the undisciplined thing, but I think another real concern for them was their lack of creativity on offense. It seemed like they ran the same 4 plays over and over again and just prayed it worked. They had the inside zone with Saquon, which once we hit the second half, it just was not going anywhere. We had a few little short routes to Dallas Goedert that Jalen Hurts loved to spam this game. We had slants with A.J. Brown, which Dallas was all over. And you had a few short routes to Devontae Smith, and that was it. It felt like, I was like, oh, yeah, that'd be enough to beat Dallas, which, it wasn't. It shouldn't have been enough. But I need to see more creativity out of the new OC before I start to feel like, okay, this team is really pushing for a Super Bowl again. And remember, it's week 1. It's a new OC. This is all stuff that can be fixed. I feel like some of the biggest mistakes people make at the beginning of the year when watching football is like, all right, it's set in stone. We know now. Like 2 years ago, the Chiefs lost to the Lions in week 1 and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. So yes, it's week 1. But there were a few things that we should kind of take away for the future. Like, it's not anything overly concerning. Like, yes, Philadelphia is still a Super Bowl contender. I think people's view of Jalen Hurts got better after this game. And, it's just a few things to sort of keep an eye on. Like, hey, can you fix your discipline? Hey, can you fix your offensive play calling? We'll see. And I think for Vic Fangio, hopefully this was something for him that he just learned. It's like, okay, I can't get away with just rushing 4 this year. It's not the Super Bowl. I'm not playing the Chiefs, who have god-awful tackle play. I need to actually be able to call up a few creative blitzes, not just stick with basic zone coverage. Because those corners of his, those rookie corners, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, they're good, but they definitely still can get beat. They're not like, Patrick Surtain or anything. So you got to be able to give them a little help, get a bit more rush from that defensive line. And I think, obviously Jalen Carter, when he comes back, will help with that.